Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today's tutorial is going to be a little bit of an interesting one, and this is going to be a tutorial on how to get a prism effect in Photoshop. Now you can get this prism effect virtually on any photo that you want to use. This is a really popular trend at the moment to use a prism when photographing, and especially when photographing portraits. So we're actually going to replicate that effect in Photoshop today. It took me a while to find out what kind of worked the best in terms of how to sort of lay things out on the image. But honestly, I think that there's so many different ways you can go about this effect in Photoshop, and that's the beauty of it. There's no set way of doing things, and I feel like every image I would probably approach this a little bit differently, and there's different techniques that you can use to make it look completely different in every photo that you use. So I'm going to start off with some main techniques though that I've found to really work well, and I hope you guys enjoy the tutorial. So the first thing we're going to do today is go to the lasso tool just up the top here, and we're going to make sure that the feathering is at 100 pixels. We want this to be quite soft. And we're going to make a really rough selection of the model's face in this image. So I'm just going to roughly move it around Elisa's face, just like that. So you can see it's kind of a funny shape. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hold down Control C and then hold down Control V to paste. So we've essentially just copied and pasted that selection into the image. You can see we've got another layer over here. And as we move it around, we can kind of position it wherever we want. Now I'm going to position this one probably just around this area here to start with, but what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to create a layer mask. So you can see the layer mask button just down here, so I'm going to click on that, and then all of a sudden we've got the mask. Now I'm going to go over to the brush tool over here, and making sure it's quite large at about 1800 pixels is fine, and using black as the coloring, and we're going to actually just erase just parts of that out. We don't want to have the whole cutout there, but this is the really fun part actually, because you can really tweak it to how you want. You can make a lot of these cutouts whatever shape you want, and you can make them all a little bit different. Now I'm just going to leave that as is now, and then I'm going to go Control V again, and we're going to paste another cutout. This time I'm going to move it up into this corner up here, and I'm going to make sure that there's not too much of the eyes, because I want this one to be a little bit different. I want it to be a little bit more hidden. And then I'm going to go and create another layer mask, and switching over to my brush again, I'm going to start erasing parts of that particular cutout. And we're just going to do this really roughly. And then we're going to go Control V again, and we'll place another one up the top here. And same thing, creating a layer mask down here, and then going to the brush and just erasing that part again. So obviously you can use things like the eraser tool for this instead of doing a layer mask every time if that's easier. I just like to do a layer mask initially because it's easy to go back and fix things. So I might just move this one just a little bit closer in. And then I'm going to go Control V again, and we're going to move another cutout just here. Same thing again, layer mask, and going to the brush tool. And we're just gonna feather that out a little bit. And then another Control and V. Move this one into the bottom corner. And same thing again, layer mask, brush, and then moving that. And then I think maybe one more just down the bottom here, and Control V again, and then moving this one down to the bottom here, around that area, and same thing again, going to the layer mask and the brush. And then we'll just move a lot of that out and erase that out. Okay, so I think I'm really happy with how this looks at the moment. So you can actually leave this exactly as is. If you want a very clear looking prism shot, you can leave this the way it is. For me, I'm actually going to select all of the cutout layers, so 1 to 6 that I've got here. And then I'm going to go up to layer and then merge layers. So you really have to make sure by that stage that you're kind of happy with how it's looking. You can save it as a PSD, but I'm pretty happy with how it looks at the moment. So I'm just going to merge the layers. And once they're merged, we're actually going to go up to filter, blur, and then radial blur. And leaving the amount at about 10, I'm going to change the blur method to zoom, and then we'll go quality best. And click OK. Okay, now you can see that there's actually a cool little effect that's just started to happen on those particular cutouts. You can see that there's a bit more of a blur, and that's a very natural effect that when you're shooting with a prism, you will sometimes get that blur depending on what kind of prism you're using. You will get that bit of like a motion blur effect. So I think it's a really cool effect that you can use for these kinds of shots. And you can also change the opacity just over here on the cutout. So you can move that down to say like around maybe around 87% or so, and you can kind of give the middle shot a little bit more focus still. Now the next step would be to go to the background layer again and duplicate this layer. So you want to duplicate that, and then we're going to go and apply a radial blur again to this layer. So we'll go to filter, blur, radial blur. So the same settings as before on the amount at 10, zoom, and then best quality, and then clicking OK. Okay, now we've applied the radial blur to the background layer. So you can see that's quite blurry now. What we're actually doing with this blurring technique on the background layer is actually just trying to blend everything in so it looks fairly natural. What I am going to do now though is go to the background copy layer that we're on, and then we'll click on layer mask again. Make sure the brush is selected again and black is selected as the color, and we're just going to erase just a couple of parts there. Get them a little bit more in focus, just to make sure that we're not blurring things way too much. And then the last step for this particular effect would be to create a burn layer. So if you guys have seen my dodge and burn tutorials, you know exactly how to do this already. But what I mean by creating a burn layer is we're going to create a layer to darken parts of the image by painting onto the image. So the way that we can do this is going down to the adjustment layers here, and going up to curves and making sure we've got our curves adjustment layer selected. We're going to bring this line down and go to Control and I to invert it. Now we'll make sure that our brush is selected and we've got white selected this time. And we're going to also make sure that flow is at 1%. And then we're going to start darkening parts of these cutouts, just to kind of give the focus once again a little bit more to the midpoint of the image. And it just kind of helps to create a bit of variation with all the cutouts and making them look a little bit different. So you can darken some more than others, just to give them more of an effect. And that is pretty much the end of the tutorial. So I'm going to take a snapshot now and I'll show you guys a before and after. So this is the before and this is the after image. So you can use this technique really with lots of different images. I have been using different techniques as well along the way during this process to make different tweaks and that sort of thing. Like I've also been using, if you actually go up to blur gallery, which is under filter just here, that's actually another really good technique to use on the cutouts to really get some interesting effects, mimicking drag, shutter, and things like that. It can really create some cool effects. So I have just started experimenting with this kind of thing in Photoshop, but I'm sure there's a million different ways that you can achieve this effect or create different prism style effects as well. So if you guys really enjoyed this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up and let me know if you'd like to see anything else on my channel or if you've got any requests. Make sure you subscribe because I'll be posting much more content just like this in future. And if any of you guys are interested in joining my Beauty Retouching for Beginners e-course that starts on the 7th of June, make sure that you do so very soon because spots are filling up very quickly and I'll be only taking 20 students along for the course for this 6-week period of time. You do receive lifetime access to the course as well, so you'll be able to keep all the material after the 6 weeks ends. I do have a link in the description box below for the course, so make sure you head on over if you're interested. But until next time, thank you guys so much for watching this video and I will see you in the next video. Bye!